the draft room was divided. Some saw generational poise in Cam Ward, others couldn't look past the intangible Shedeur Sanders carried with him. When Cleveland chose Ward with the top pick and gave him a $53 million contract, it was bold, but now, after Sanders' dazzling debut, it's looking risky. Sanders didn't just outperform expectations, he made history. And just like that, the Browns are caught in a firestorm of second-guessing, forced to confront whether they passed on something truly special.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It's not just about numbers anymore, it's about who carries the weight of a franchise better. This isn't a case of one player rising while the other falls. Instead, it's a narrative fueled by mutual excellence. Sanders is rewriting records, but Ward is setting a tone of maturity that few rookies match. Together, they're challenging every assumption about how NFL talent is measured, how rookies should behave, and what leadership looks like in the spotlight. This story is bigger than wins and losses. It's about how greatness is defined when the stakes are highest. Kevin Stefanski is officially on the clock, and the timer just started ticking faster than anyone expected. Because when Shedeur Sanders took the field for the Cleveland Browns and threw for over 300 yards in his NFL debut, he didn't just light up the stat sheet. He lit a match under the entire Browns organization. That performance was more than a strong start. It was historic. He became the first rookie quarterback in Browns history to throw for over 300 yards. In one game, Sanders went from promising prospect to the centerpiece of a rapidly changing narrative. And for Stefanski, that narrative is becoming a full-blown crisis. Let's not sugarcoat it, there were doubts about Sanders. Some called him a system quarterback. Others questioned whether he was ready for the league's speed. Analysts debated if his college pedigree would translate, or if he was riding the momentum of his last name. But from the opening drive, none of that mattered. On the field, Sanders looked not just comfortable, he looked in control. His decision-making was sharp. His poise under pressure? Elite. And his leadership? Undeniable. That debut wasn't just a win for Sanders. It was a loud, uncomfortable wake-up call for the NFL scouting community. And for the Browns, it raised a much more direct and painful question. Did they get it wrong when they drafted Cam Ward with the first overall pick? Because as good as Sanders looked in Cleveland's offense, Cam Ward was supposed to be their guy. Ward, now with the Tennessee Titans, wasn't a controversial selection. He came into the draft with high football IQ, maturity beyond his years, and an approach to the game that teams dream about. He's calm under pressure. He's measured in his growth. He says the right things and does the work. Ward checked all the boxes, and that's exactly why the Browns made him their top pick. But none of that is protecting Kevin Stefanski from the storm that followed Sanders' record-setting debut. Because when the guy you didn't take goes out and breaks franchise records, the pressure isn't about development timelines anymore. It's about decisions. High-stakes, high-cost decisions that now have every analyst, fan, and executive second-guessing everything about your draft strategy. And to make things even more complicated, Ward didn't stumble. He didn't flop. His response to Sanders' breakout was exactly what you'd want from a franchise quarterback. He acknowledged Sanders' moment. He kept the focus on his own growth. He spoke about team effort, about building step by step, and about staying focused on long-term improvement. That's not media training. That's real leadership. But in this league, optics are everything. And right now, Ward's leadership is being overshadowed by Sanders' production. Fair or not, it's happening. Ward may be saying all the right things and putting in the work, but Sanders is delivering results. And when you're trying to justify a top draft pick, results matter more than potential. For Stefanski, that means every game is now under scrutiny. Every throw Ward makes for the Titans will be watched through the lens of what Sanders is doing in Cleveland. Every win Sanders racks up adds another layer of heat on Stefanski's shoulders. Every misstep by the Browns will be tied back to that draft choice. And let's be honest, it's not just about the numbers. It's about the shift in quarterback expectations across the league. Because both Sanders and Ward are part of a new wave of NFL quarterbacks. These aren't rookies being groomed to take over in 2 or 3 years. These are polished, mentally sharp, emotionally intelligent players walking into leadership roles immediately. Advanced college systems, elite training, relentless work ethic. That's the new baseline. And Sanders and Ward both represent that evolution. They're not here to survive, they're here to compete. And that's where the comparison becomes impossible to ignore. Sanders is thriving. Ward is maturing. and both are redefining what it means to be a rookie in the. But here's where the split becomes sharp. Only one of them is shattering records in the city that passed on him. And that is not something Cleveland can just brush aside. It's not a fluke. It's not a lucky start. Sanders' debut was built on precision, composure, and execution. That's not hype. That's proof. Meanwhile, Ward's path may be slower, but it's no less meaningful. His maturity, his refusal to be dragged into a false rivalry, and his focus on team culture are exactly what veteran quarterbacks are praised for. He's not chasing the spotlight. He's building something real in Tennessee. And if that growth leads to consistency, wins, and playoff appearances, then he becomes the long-term success story, not the guy who burned brightest first. That's why this story isn't just about two rookies, it's about two roads to greatness. Sanders' trajectory is loud, fast, and thrilling. Ward's is steady, deliberate, and composed. They're not rivals in the traditional sense, but their careers are now forever intertwined. One is redefining what's possible in a rookie debut. The other is showing that sustainable leadership is a process, not a headline. And in the middle of it all, Kevin Stefanski is stuck trying to justify a choice that already looks like it might define his tenure in Cleveland, for better or worse. Because if Sanders keeps this up, if the Browns build around him and keep winning, he becomes the symbol of a front office miracle. A quarterback they didn't pick first, but who might become the face of their future. But if Ward turns into a franchise leader in Tennessee and the Browns fail to build around Sanders, then this gets flipped. And fast. Stefanski's already shaky footing becomes unstable. The what-if of the draft turns into a "how did we miss that?" indictment of the entire organization. And that's the weight of this rivalry. It's not personal between Sanders and Ward. It's philosophical. It's organizational. It's cultural. It's about what the modern NFL quarterback is supposed to look like, how quickly he's supposed to perform, and what qualities matter most when a franchise is on the clock. Sanders has raised the bar. Ward is reminding everyone that growth can't be rushed. And together, they're giving the NFL a blueprint for how to develop, evaluate, and lead in the most scrutinized position in sports. This is just the beginning. Every week they take the field, this story gets bigger. Every touchdown, every interview, every win, it all adds fuel. And regardless of how humble or respectful they remain, the reality is this: they are now the quarterback storyline of the season. Not just because of their talent, but because of what they represent. Sanders is the star that explodes out of the gate. Ward is the leader who earns it over time. And for teams, fans, and coaches across the league, the question is no longer who's better, it's which approach works. Let us know what you think. Did the Browns make the right move? Is Ward's maturity going to win out in the long run? Or is Sanders already showing that talent, readiness, and leadership can't be ignored on draft night? Like if you're watching this quarterback class reshape the league. Share if you've been in this debate since the draft. And hit that subscribe button. We're tracking every throw, every game, and every turn in this rivalry. Because if week 1 was just the beginning, you can bet this story is about to take over the season. So here we are. The NFL season is barely underway, and we're already staring down one of the most high-stakes quarterback dramas in recent memory. Not because of controversy. Not because of scandal. But because two rookies, with two completely different styles, backgrounds, and trajectories, have become the face of a rapidly evolving league. And sitting right in the middle of it, trying to steer a franchise while the media hurricane swirls overhead? Kevin Stefanski. Let's not dance around it, he's in serious trouble. Not because the Browns are 0-4 or because of a public meltdown. No, it's something far more dangerous. The guy his team didn't pick might already be the future of the league. Shedeur Sanders didn't just have a good game. He had a seismic debut that shattered records, sparked debate, and turned every spotlight in the NFL straight back onto Cleveland's front office. And that's what makes this story so brutal. This isn't about personalities. There's no beef. Cam Ward didn't say anything out of pocket. Sanders didn't throw shade. In fact, both of these rookies have handled themselves with more class and composure than half the league's veterans. They're not feeding the drama, but the contrast between them is. Because it's not just that Sanders played well. It's that he played so well, so fast, that it's already forced a reckoning across the NFL. We've said it already, but let's say it again for the people in the back. Shedeur Sanders broke a Cleveland Browns franchise record in his first ever game. A team with a notoriously cursed quarterback history, and this guy comes in as a rookie and throws for over 300 yards like he's been doing it for years. He didn't stumble. He didn't flinch. He made it look easy. And now, every single team that passed on him, including the Browns with the #1 overall pick, is rethinking everything. Because the Browns didn't pick Sanders with that top pick. They went with Cam Ward. Now again, for the record, Cam Ward is not the problem. He's handled everything thrown his way with calm, maturity, and poise. His response to Sanders' monster performance was textbook leadership. He praised his fellow rookie. He stayed focused on his own development. He emphasized the team, not himself. It was the kind of response you expect from a 10-year vet, not a guy just starting his NFL journey. And that's what makes this dynamic so complicated. Because Ward hasn't done anything wrong. But it doesn't matter. Because when Sanders is making history, Ward gets caught in the backlash of a decision he had nothing to do with. Every throw he makes in Tennessee is now being compared to the throws Sanders is making in Cleveland. Every development checkpoint, every growing pain, it all becomes fuel for the ongoing debate. Did the Browns pass on the better quarterback? And when that question becomes part of your weekly coverage cycle, that's a nightmare for any front office. Especially Kevin Stefanski. Because at the end of the day, fair or not, it always comes back to the coach. When fans look back at drafts, they don't just remember who was picked. They remember who was passed over. And right now, Sanders isn't just outperforming expectations, he's setting a new one. Let's talk about what that means for the bigger picture. Because this goes beyond just two rookies. This is about a fundamental shift in how quarterbacks are being developed and evaluated. Sanders and Ward are both products of a new generation, hyper-prepared, mentally locked in, emotionally mature. College football has evolved. Training has evolved. And so has the role of the quarterback. Gone are the days where rookies sit for a season or two, watching from the sidelines while they learn the speed of the game. Today's rookies are stepping in immediately, not just to play but to lead. Sanders is proving that if you have the right mindset, the right preparation, and the right tools, you can take over an offense right now. You don't need years of seasoning. You need trust, timing, and football IQ, and he's got all three. But that doesn't mean Cam Ward is behind. In fact, his path might be just as important. Because Ward is doing something equally impressive. He's showing what long-term success looks like when it's built on steady growth, not sudden explosions. His willingness to own mistakes, stay focused, and uplift his team through it all? That's not flashy. That's foundation building. And both of these guys are proving something that can't be overlooked. The future of NFL quarterbacking isn't just about who throws the farthest or runs the fastest. It's about who thinks faster, who leads better, who elevates the people around them. And both Sanders and Ward are already showing they're wired for that. Still, in the court of public opinion, and especially in the arena of NFL media cycles, results scream louder than philosophy. And right now, Sanders is screaming. The league's taking notes. Analysts are revising their takes. And Kevin Stefanski? He's trying to hold the narrative together. Because if this continues, if Sanders keeps delivering game after game while Ward takes longer to find his rhythm, the pressure becomes unbearable. The questions will pile up. The comparisons will get uglier. And eventually, someone in Cleveland is going to have to take the fall for the decision. And that's how coaching careers end. Even if Ward becomes great, if Sanders becomes greater, faster, it's Stefanski who wears that scar. It won't matter how well the Browns perform in other areas. It won't matter how respected the pick was at the time. All that will matter is that the Browns had Shedeur Sanders in their hands, and let him go. It's a brutal business. And yet, at the center of all of it, the two quarterbacks themselves are still handling things with more grace than the media circus they've unintentionally created. Sanders hasn't gloated. He's not calling out teams that passed on him. He's letting his play do the talking. Ward hasn't gotten defensive. He's not trying to one-up Sanders. He's staying focused on what he can control. That's what makes this storyline not just dramatic, but respectable. This isn't a rivalry of egos. It's a rivalry of excellence. Two young quarterbacks, both carrying themselves like professionals who are going to push each other for years to come. And while they may never admit it publicly, you can be sure they're watching each other's box scores. They know the comparisons are out there. And they're both going to use it as, so whether you're Team Sanders or Team Ward, or just someone who loves watching great football, this is the moment to pay attention. Because these two aren't just shaping their own stories. They're reshaping how the NFL views its most important position. And for Kevin Stefanski, the stakes couldn't be higher. This draft decision is already defining his year. If it works, he's a genius who found two future stars. If it doesn't, he's the coach who let greatness slip through his hands. And with every touchdown Shedeur Sanders throws, that narrative writes itself louder. And just like that, the NFL has its storyline. Not a manufactured feud. Not a scandal. Something even more powerful. A real, evolving quarterback rivalry that already feels bigger than the stat lines. And it's only been a week. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, 2 rookies, 2 franchises. One decision that's reshaping the way we look at quarterback development, draft strategy, and the very future of NFL leadership. We've already watched Sanders storm into Cleveland like he owned the place. Not with attitude, not with ego, but with performance, the kind that stops conversations. Over 300 yards, composure that looked mechanical, and an offense that felt like it finally found its identity. In a franchise starved for quarterback consistency, Sanders didn't just deliver, he redefined the standard. And the numbers weren't just impressive, they were historic. The first rookie in Browns history to throw for over 300 yards in a game. That's not just some passing note in a box score. That's the kind of stat that gets framed. That becomes trivia in 2045. That creates a moment, and NFL teams are built around moments. But for the Cleveland Browns, that moment came with a twist of irony. Because Sanders wasn't their top pick. Cam Ward was. He's the one they took first. The safe choice. The QB with maturity, sharp reads, and the long-term projection everyone agreed was rock solid. He went to the Tennessee Titans, ready to develop into the kind of leader you can build a culture around. And to be clear, he's doing just that. Ward has been the definition of poise since day one. He's not out here chasing headlines. He's not clapping back on social media or throwing teammates under the bus. His response to Sanders' breakout? Humble, classy, focused on improvement. He talked about accountability, team dynamics, and self-awareness. That's how leaders talk. But the NFL doesn't wait. It reacts. And right now, it's reacting to Shedeur Sanders like he's the next big thing. His debut cracked open the door to something we rarely see so soon. Real expectations. Not potential. Not give him a year. He's already delivering. And that's exactly why Kevin Stefanski is feeling the pressure. Let's be honest, his seat was already warm. It's Cleveland. Quarterback turmoil is basically a franchise tradition. And now, after passing on a guy who just made history in their own uniform, every game feels like a referendum. Every missed third down. Every red zone stall. Every interception. It's not just a play. It's a question. What if we made the wrong call? That's the kind of question that starts showing up on radio shows, on fan forums, in post-game pressers. And once it starts, you can't put it back in the box. Now let's zoom out. Because this isn't just a local Cleveland story. This is bigger. This is about how the entire league evaluates quarterbacks. Because if Sanders is the guy who wasn't quite ready, who came with a media buzz some execs were scared of, and he walks in and plays like this, then the whole model is broken. For years, the NFL has obsessed over measurables. Size, arm strength, combine interviews, personality tests, analytics, the list goes on. But what Sanders just did, stepping into one of the most demanding positions in sports and delivering a clean, efficient, winning performance, is something all those numbers rarely predict. And what about Ward? He's the product of those same systems. He fits the mold. But that's why this story has so many layers. Because Cam Ward is still the guy every team wants in their locker room. He's got the mind, the maturity, the respect of his teammates. Just because Sanders got there faster doesn't mean Ward isn't going to get there at all. And this is where it gets real. Both of these guys could be stars, but one of them is already there. And when that star happens to be the one you passed on, that's when the second guessing starts. That's when the fans stop being patient. That's when the owner picks up the phone and says, "Are we sure we did the right thing?" Because here's the thing, this isn't about long-term potential anymore. It's about what you're doing right now. Sanders just altered expectations. He changed what we think a rookie quarterback can be. That's not a small shift. That's seismic. He also did something that hits deeper than just numbers. He brought hope to a city that hasn't had a quarterback to believe in for years. That's the kind of emotional currency that makes people forget everything else. And right now, Cleveland is all in on Shedeur. And back in Tennessee, Ward is working. Quietly. Methodically. Laying his own foundation. It doesn't come with fireworks, but it comes with trust. And if his leadership keeps developing the way it has, he's going to command that team with authority soon enough. But until that day comes, he'll be living in Sanders' shadow. Not because he failed, but because the guy taken after him succeeded first. And for Kevin Stefanski, that's a worst-case scenario. Because unless Ward becomes undeniably great, and unless Sanders somehow cools off, which doesn't look likely, the comparison will stick. And comparisons like that don't just haunt coaches. They fire them. It's the Mahomes-Trubisky blueprint all over again. 2 quarterbacks. One taken higher. One explodes early. And suddenly, that draft day decision becomes the lens through which everything else is judged. Fair or not, that's what Stefanski and the Browns are walking into. And they know it. Which means this isn't just about on-field performance anymore. It's about controlling the narrative. Keeping the locker room focused. Making sure every press conference doesn't spiral into a Sanders versus Ward retrospective. Because the moment that happens, you've lost control of the story. But the story's already writing itself. Two young quarterbacks. Both with talent. Both with leadership. Both with the potential to shape this league's future. But only one is ahead of schedule. Only one is changing how people think about rookie ceilings. And only one has fans, media, and executives wondering if they witnessed the start of something legendary. So now the pressure's on everyone. On Stefanski. On Ward. Even on Sanders to keep it going and prove that this wasn't a one-time surge. But the pressure's a little different depending on where you're standing. Because when you're trying to catch up to someone who's already sprinting out of the gate, every step feels like a test. So what now? Shedeur Sanders has thrown the first punch. Cam Ward, calm as ever, is tightening his gloves. And the rest of us? We're sitting front row watching two futures unfold at once. On different timelines with different styles, but on a collision course that already feels inevitable. Who ends up as the face of this class? That answer's still coming. But one thing is clear. Both of these quarterbacks aren't just trying to win games, they're building legacies. Drop your take below. Are you sold on Sanders as the breakout of the year? Is Cam Ward still the long-term answer people thought he'd be? Or are we watching one of the most pivotal draft choices in modern NFL history play out in real time? Hit the like, share it with your football crew, and subscribe. We're tracking every throw, every headline, and every twist in this story. Because if Week 1 gave us this much drama, you already know this season's about to be wild.